afternoon, everyone. This is Stuart Blumenthal with ETHOSystems. We are going to get started here actually on our webinar today on the interactive custom report writer. You'll hear it spoken as ICRW a lot of times. And today, Jay Chang from one of our awesome senior consultants is going to be going over some tips and tricks that he has dealt with the ICRW module. So Jay, if you can go to the next slide real fast, and then I'll turn it over to you. Just a couple logistics here. The presentation is about 30 minutes long. It might go a little shorter, might go a little longer based upon the Q&A in the system. All the phone lines are muted. So I do see someone with their hand raised in the attendance. If you can use the questions feature, which I'm glad that's segmented right into there. If you can use this questions feature, I'll be able to answer all the questions throughout the webinar. I'll be monitoring that. And if the questions are good or if they pertain to the entire group, I will make sure that we have Jay answer those. And then last but not least, if you do want a copy of the webinar, please let me know. Happy to just put your email address in the questions feature, and I will make sure we get a copy of the webinar sent to you immediately following this. It's good to attend these webinars just because it allows you to ask the Q&As, but anytime we do have one of these, we do also post these on our YouTube channel where we have all of our webinars and all of our history there. But it's always good to have these, the interactive portions where you can ask any questions you want. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Jay, who has spent a lot of time putting this together. So Jay, all yours.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Welcome, everyone. My name's Jay Chang, and one of my specialties is in report writing, and I'll be sharing some of my ICRW tips and tricks. All right, so here's our agenda today, and what I'll be doing is going through the tips, some of the tips here that I've laid out. So let's get right into it. So tip number one, filters and performance. So looking at the different ways that you can filter in ICRW, you can filter within the define tab of ICRW in your report. You've got the option to move your columns within the report in the refine tab and move it into the prompt section here. I call that an in-report prompt. And then your third option here is runtime prompts, which is in your prompts tab within the report. And you can then bring in the different columns to filter on so that when the user is running the report, they can pick and choose what to filter. So I wanted to point out, and some of you might already know, the performance of your report that you get back when running the report. So if you can filter it within the report itself, so if you know that all of your projects that you're going to be picking from should only be active, setting that filter within that define tab of the report is going to reduce the time it takes to run that report right off the bat, because when you run a query on that, it's going to come back with fewer results. It'll process less of the data that it needs to bring back. Okay, so if you do an in-report prompt, it still needs to pull in all of those records, including all the inactive records. So it's going to take longer if you do an in-report prompt. It does give you the ability to pick and choose maybe some of those other criteria that you don't normally choose, but you still want that included in the report. And then your runtime prompt here, choosing it here, once you click, view on that report, then it's going to bring back fewer results. So this is, of course, a good method as well. But I would say this would be your priority here if you can reduce the number of records right off the bat, and then choosing the prompts here. Okay, so looking at that in a report here, if I pull up, let's say, project detail here and click edit, once this report pulls up here. So within the report, for those of you that have been working on creating some of these reports or have looked through the different tabs of these reports to see how it's created, you've got 4 different tabs here. So in the define tab, once you've got a couple columns laid out here, you've got this in report filter that you can choose from, where you can click on that filter. And then in the drop down, you can pick and choose what columns you want to filter off of, okay? And then that would be your in report filter here. And then moving over to the refine tab. Actually, let me choose a bit different report here. I'm gonna go to, we'll just go to AR invoices here. Okay, so in that define tab, looking again at the filters here, you can see you can pick your columns to filter on here, and this will reduce the amount of time it takes for your data to produce. Okay, here is the refine tab, and then in the refine tab, you can choose an in report prompt where if you click on a column and you right click, you can move that to the prompts. So this lets you choose it, within the report, within the confines of what you filtered here. But this generally takes longer for that report to come back because it still comes back with all the results. Okay, and then your other option here is in your prompts and picking and choosing what columns you want to bring in. Okay, so I just wanted to point out the different ways you can filter. Best method option being bringing it in the define tab and then in the prompts. The refine tab is good as well, but it still brings back all the results, so it's going to take longer. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so moving on to my next tip is really the main piece of today's tips and tricks. I really wanted to cover unions and how you can utilize unions in ICRW. So to begin with, I wanted to define and give it a purpose, or define the purpose of unions. So unions are SQL operators that are used to combine the results from several tables. That's SQL tables. In ICRW, they're called reporting areas, into a single distinct result set. So you can see here, you've got table 1 with 2 different columns, table 2 with 2 different columns. There's 3 record sets here for each table. When you run a union operator, you're saying table 1 union table 2, the resulting table is not all 6 records that you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually going to give you 5 records. So it's bringing in column A3, A2, A1. And you can see here the highlighted A1 in both tables get combined into 1. So it gives you the total of all records from 2 tables, but when you use a union operator, it removes duplicate values and gives you just that 1. So I wanted to point that out. In ICRW, there is a union all option. So if you are doing a union report and you realize that there's 2 different records, but they're actually unique and you need them both shown, then you're going to choose the union all as opposed to just the union. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. Okay, So there are a couple rules and restrictions when you use unions in ICRW. Okay, the first one being the number of columns need to be the same across the different reporting areas. Okay, so in reporting area 1, if you've got 5 columns, then in the second reporting area, so if we do GL detail for the first reporting area, in the second reporting area, if you wanted to bring over hours, which is the example I'm going to show here in a little bit, from the timesheet reporting area, you will need to make sure you have 5 columns pulled, and then also from the GL detail, and then 5 columns pulled for the timesheet reporting area. And so ICRW kind of lays it out so it'll show you how many columns you've chosen and those columns that you have to populate for the next reporting areas that you choose to do a union on. Okay, second rule, the column header names, they'll need to match. So you'll need to make sure that the column header names are matching across the reporting areas. The order of the columns, they need to be the same. So if you've got project ID, cost code ID, cost type, in both reporting areas, you're going to want to make sure that they're laid out in the same order. So typically when you're running SQL reports or creating SQL scripts, you'll have to make sure that it's in that same order. But in ICRW, it does lay it out for you, so it's in that same order. So we'll take a look at that in a sec. Okay, and another rule for the union operator is that the respective columns in each reporting area must be of the same data type. Okay, so in SQL, the union operator, when used, it has to be in the same order. So if the first column is project ID, then that's usually a character, a varchar data type. So then in your timesheet reporting area, that project ID also needs to be a character type as well. Okay. There are times you can overwrite the default column that you choose to say it's a number or something like that. You can put in a function to change it, and it's going to error out if the data types are not correct. Okay, so you just want to make sure that they're correct in both reporting areas for the same order of columns. Okay, hope that makes sense. If there's any questions so far, let us know. So the last piece is really a restriction in ICRW. So ICRW reports created using unions within the UI cannot use prompts. So if you do create an ICRW within the user interface, it disables the ability to use the prompts. So I wanted to point that out. There is a workaround for that, and I will show that here a little bit later on. Okay, so I'm going to provide an example report, and then we can kind of go through creating one together. Okay, so I've got a job cost history report with hours. And so just to save time, I've created separate versions of that report with a different amount of progress along, so I don't have to spend time looking for the fields. So here is my job cost history report with hours initial. So basically, when you're first creating the report, you're just going to click add, and you're going to choose the one reporting area. So I'm going to start with choosing the GL detail reporting area. So once you click add, you're going to create a new report, and this is where you need to choose your first reporting area. So if I click on the drop down, you'll see several reporting areas. I'm going to choose the GL detail. Okay. I'm going to give it a name. Create the report. Okay. And then once you choose that report area, create the report, you'll have to come into the reporting area GL detail drop-down list here to pick and choose your different fields that you want to pick in or add in. So usually I will just go ahead and double click and it'll pull it in. Okay, any of your dimension values, you want to use this dimension folder here. So for project, I'm going to choose my project ID, project name, and so forth. Okay. So I'm actually switching over to another tab where I've already chosen my fields that I needed. So I'm going to come in here to job cost history report with hours initial and just edit that. So I don't have to go through and find all my fields that I need. Okay, so you can see I've already chosen my project ID, my name, my cost code, my batch date, my employee contact name, document number, and then my PM name, and then hours. Okay, so for the hours here, I know I don't have a hours field to bring in from here, but I know I'm going to need hours from the timesheets reporting area. So what I did for the hours is I actually just created a calculation column. And so when you click that, I just put in hours here. And then I just put null here. Okay, so that's what I did. So if I look at this and click on this and right click and go to, oh, I need to do it on the define tab, sorry, to show you. So if I go to hours and click column properties, go to column format, I'm sorry, it's edit formula, that's what it is. So it takes you into the folder title, which I just put it under measures, gave it a column title hours, and I just put null. Okay. So once I've got my columns that I need here, in the define tab, there is a little icon over at the far right in the header section here called combine columns. Okay, if I click that, it's going to allow me to choose another reporting area. Okay, so here I'm going to scroll down and look for timesheets. That's what I want. Okay, when I choose that, you can see here the default operator here is union. If you click on that little drop down, it'll give you the different options. So union all, the only difference between union and union all is the union, again, it removes all duplicate values between the different reporting areas. If it sees any union all, it just keeps all of them, okay? I'm not gonna cover intersect or minus today, just the union. So you can see I brought in the timesheets. So I'm just gonna move this filters down. So now it's got that new reporting area highlighted. And if you look here in dotted line, it's showing me every column that I've pulled in from the GL detail. So now it's expecting me to populate these columns matching from the timesheets area. Okay, so you can see here now I've got timesheets, timesheet entry, and I can click on the drop down to pull in the different fields for it. So add column project name, I know I pulled that from the dimensions folder. Just gonna expand that a little bit. I'm gonna go over to the project folder and go to project. That's the project name. So it's going to go from left to right. So if I double click on this, it'll populate that missing field that it needs to match up to. So there's my project. Okay, next column here. Oh, I hovered over that and gave me the little pop-up box. So add column, next column here is a project ID. So I'm going to double click project ID. It'll populate that. Okay, next column, cost code. Is here. And that's the cost code ID, which is there. Okay, batch posting date. I am going to say the batch posting date is my timesheet entry attributes entry date. Okay, so that is a date field, just like in the GL detail. So if I click over to this other reporting area, it will highlight that reporting area and show me what columns I've chosen for that reporting area. Okay, if you ever need to refer back to it. So you can see I chose batch posting date here. And then if I click, so when I click that, it also shows me the reporting areas here. So then you can always modify from here. So I'm going to click back to timesheets. And so you'll have the remainder of these columns that you need to populate. Okay, so add column document number. So for the document number, I'm going to choose, should be a record number here. So I'm going to choose record number from the timesheets to be the column that aligns with my doc number in my GL detail journal entry. Okay. Add column primary contact name employee. So for that, it's back over in my dimensions. So here I'm going to expand dimensions, go to my employee. And then if I drop down on the employee, I should see my primary contact name. So that's the exact same field. Okay, add column doc GL entry. So I'm going to come here and then go to my timesheet. And that's the doc number. So I'm actually going to choose, I'm going to go back to the attributes here. So when you're initially creating these reports, I mean, you're going to have to, there's a little bit of time that it takes to go through the different fields. And really, if you're not sure what it is, you can always double click and pull that in and then come to your refine to see what data actually pulls in. Let's see, what's a good one I can use? I'm just going to go ahead and use record number for that field so it gets populated in. Okay, add column contact name, project.manager contact. So I know that's going to be in my dimensions here. Under project, the project dimension, and I know it's in the project.manager folder here or subfolder, and project manager contact. Oh, I need to expand that subfolder, sorry. So project manager contact, contact name. Okay, so I'm just gonna double click that, and that populates that field. And then the hours. So I know the hours are going to be in the measures hours. Okay, so I've got everything populated here, matching up to the GL detail. So now I should be able to click refine, and if there's no issues with any of these, then it should pull in my data. Okay. Set operation failed due to incompatible sort order. So there is a problem with the sort here.
One of the things you'll find with ICRW is that it's hard to do some of these things on the fly, and it's and it does take some testing and training. I
Yep.
would say that when you're doing these, sometimes you have a tendency to just get frustrated. Make sure that if you get a little stuck sometimes, feel free to reach out to us. It's sometimes the second set of eyes just solves the 98% of the problems.
Yes, I would agree with that. So for the purpose of this webinar, I'm just going to pull in my report here that I've got where it is working, and click edit here. And so if you've got everything loaded properly here, you can see here on this report, I've got quite a few more columns. It did take me a little bit of time to make sure I've got everything lined up properly. So if you have everything lined up properly and you've chosen the correct fields from each reporting area, you will see when you click on the refine, it will pull in. Okay. And so once you've got this pulled in, you should get data back like this, and then you can format it afterwards. So when you do create this union report within the UI, your prompts will not work. So if I attempt to come in here to add a prompt, you will see an error message saying prompts are not currently supported for analysis that combine criteria. Okay. So to get around this, you will have to pull this out as a UI created union report. So what I like to do is, you can see here in this custom tab. Oh, so before, sorry, I'm supposed to come in here. So there's a workaround for adding prompts. Okay, so the workaround for adding prompts to ICRW reports created within the user interface, what I just mentioned. So you can, what we'll do is we'll copy the ICRW generated SQL script, paste that into the new report field, and ultimately you'll save it as a new report. Okay, so when you do that, you will need to reformat and update your column header names. Okay, so I'm just gonna provide an example of that. Okay, so back in here, this is the report that we've created through the UI. So you can see that when you get into define, you'll see the preview columns with the different reporting areas. Okay, and you can add in more than two reporting areas. You can add in more. Just know it gets, you just have to make sure you're finding the corresponding data types and column fields. But once you've got that, and you need to add in prompts, what you can do is come to the custom tab here, and ICRW issues a SQL script for it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna copy all of this, and you can just put it in Note++ or in Notepad. what I did here. And well, you don't technically have to put it in Notepad as long as it's in your clipboard when you copy the SQL issued. Down at the bottom here, there's a new report button you can click on. Okay, when you click new report, this allows you to paste in your SQL script. So I just copied that from the SQL issued. I'm just gonna paste it into here. Okay it. Okay, what this does is it essentially generates a new report for me. It's just gonna be a custom report, okay? So I pasted that in, it takes me into my refine tab and it shows me my list of columns, okay? So I'm just gonna come in here and do content paging, make it dynamic so it expands everything. So you can see it pulled in the same data set. It's just that at this point, all formatting is gone. Okay, so at this point, you will have to reformat. So you can either reformat the column headers here by clicking on each one. I'm sorry, you have to go into the define tab. And then here, you can go to the column properties, choose custom headings, and put in or update what that column title should be manually like this and go through the steps. You can also do it in the notepad as well. You do have to have a little bit of knowledge here. So ICRW, when it generates a SQL script, it creates these SAW0, SAW1, SAW2. So these are kind of like the column header names that it just likes to generically create. So you can update these to say, for this SAW0, so everywhere you see a SAW0, it should be project name, right? So you can do a find replace and update it here prior to you loading that SQL script. So this one would be project ID. Right, and you can do a find replace, and you will see in the SQL script the union parameter here. Okay, and so this is my first reporting area here with the filters, and then there's the union, and there is my second reporting area. Okay, so that's kind of the back end. So if you want to just rename all of these in SQL, you can do that and then have it load correctly the first time, or you can update it here manually. All right. So I'm just going to go back to my reports here because I have one where I've already done the renaming. So this is the one that I reloaded. So if I click edit on this one,
We spent a lot of time creating those, removing those saws on our side. I mean, that's very common on our side to do that.
Yep. So here's my custom reporting area where I've reloaded, and all I really did was rename my column headers in the define tab. And so once it is brought in as a custom reporting area and it's not a union report within the UI, then you can actually come into the prompts tab and click on this new button, and then I can actually choose my column headers to prompt on. Okay, so I'll call this project ID, and I mean, you can come into the options here. You've got a couple options, you can set defaults. So we've covered some of the prompt options in another ICRW course that is already uploaded. I think it was like a year ago on our YouTube channel, so you can always reference that. But essentially, you can add in the prompts here now that I've reloaded it. Okay, and then you can save that. All right. So now at this point, if you want to do a preview here and just run that report, it should pull in my values here. Okay, so the preview's isn't happy. Let me come into another tab here, go back into interactive custom reports, and now that I've saved that version, there's the reloaded one that I just saved. If I run this, okay, so there's my two prompts. So the preview doesn't always work. Once you save it, and you actually run the report, you'll see your options here. So if I choose everything for just project 001, done, this is optional. I don't have to filter on it, but if I do, there are my options there. Click view. You'll see my prompts are working. So that's kind of the workaround to get your prompts added for union reports, okay? All right, any questions on that?
No, I think we got about a couple minutes left, so
Gotcha.
don't see any questions yet.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move on. So adding a pivot, I just wanted to show for those of you that ever wondered how can you add a pivot in ICRW, you can, once you've got your column headers and your fields all chosen, you can go to the Refine tab in ICRW, and in the lower left-hand side, you'll see a Views section, okay? In that View section, you're gonna click on New View on the icon and click Pivot Table. Okay, once you choose the column you're pivoting, once you choose a pivot table, you'll see a different reporting area, and you'll be able to choose the column that you're pivoting by dragging and dropping those fields into the pivot field. So I'm going to provide just a quick example of that, and then we can wrap up. All right, so let's see, do I have one open? This one, I believe, is in that, yep. Okay, so here's my custom reporting area. I'm in the Refine tab. So the View section at the very bottom here, if you hover over this icon, there's a new view that you can choose. So if I click on this drop down, you'll see right under that table, you'll see a pivot table. Okay, so if I choose pivot table, it will take me into that pivot layout. Okay, so in here, let me drag this down a little bit. Well, let me actually drag it up. You'll see that here in the pivot table, it brings in all my rows. And if I scroll over to the right, by default, it's just setting the project manager as a pivot. So you can see here, it's already pivoting the project manager field. So it's giving me a column for every project manager. So if I don't want project manager, and let's say I want to pivot by the cost type here, I can just pull this project manager column out. Okay, I'm just dragging and dropping. Okay, so here in the measure labels, what I want to do is pull in my cost type here. Let me just move this cost type here. So I'm just going to drag it and drop it right in here. Okay, so now you can see I'm pivoting by my cost types. Okay, and then the actual measures that it's pulling in for each cost type is going to be the amount. So we don't need to change that because that is what I want. But if it's not the correct measure and you need to pull in something else, you can always drag this out. You can always drag it out. Oh, okay. So it sees that it's the only measure column. So it's not letting me drag it out. So it's keeping that there. And so that is really how you can pivot on any of your columns. Okay, so if I scroll down on this, you should see some data here. So you can see some of the data populating in based on my column types or my my cost type. Okay, so if that looks good, you can click done. And so you will have your table view, but then down here, you'll also have your pivot table view. Okay, so you can, if you want to see the pivot table, you just highlight that and then click on this right arrow to add the view. And now if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see my pivot table. And then you can format this to have it content page and do some further formatting. So if you only want to see the pivot table, you can simply exit out of this view or remove this view. It's still there and available for you to bring in if you need to, but right now I've just got the pivot table. Okay, so then if I save that, that is what will be shown. And you can still do your prompts here. Okay, and if you want this brought up to do a in report prompt, you can just right click on that column and do move columns to prompts. So just wanted to show that. It looks like I'm running over on time. So that is what I wanted to present today. So I will hand it back over to you, Stuart.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was, now I know how to do pivot tables. I just learned something awesome at the end. So great job, Jay. Really appreciate you putting this together. A couple just last minute things. So next month we'll have our webinar on the 2024, I can't believe I'm already saying that, R1 release, which we are going to be going over some of the new construction features in there. For our clients and prospects, we should have gotten an email with that link. Please feel free to register for that. In the meantime, if you have any questions on 1099s or anything, we did put a good video out there, but please put a support case in if you need any help with getting your 1099s processed by the end of the month. Appreciate again, Jay, for you putting this together. It was a lot of work. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a great day and stay warm out there for half the country. So thank you very much.